All right, just one clarification. I don't write code, so I participate in Lightroom since day one, but I don't actually write the code itself. So thank you guys for coming out. I know it's New York, it's busy, it's kind of a nice day. You could be doing anything, but you're here, and I really appreciate that. So I'll be showing the new version of Lightroom. I thought I would get you guys up to speed on what's changed from the previous versions, and of course we'll also do some Photoshop tips and techniques I hope to get in as well. With that said, let me just take you through, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 slides real quick, and then we'll jump right into the product. So first and foremost, that's me. And yes, I am a photographer. I don't just work for Adobe doing presentations. I actually get out and shoot and use the product. Last night, I was on the New York taxi boat tour, and I did the Statue of Liberty and all the bridges and all that. So we'll see some of my failed work come into this presentation at some point as well. The Creative Cloud photography plan is really what we're driving with the whole Lightroom and Photoshop combination now that you can get with Creative Cloud. For those of you who are new to it, it is a perfect transformation for your photography, giving you world-class tools to be able to use that traditionally, if you think about buying a copy of Photoshop and buying a copy of Lightroom and then keeping them up to date, just to get into that game was $1,000 almost before. Now, anyone can get in for the low price of $9.99 a month and always have the latest versions without having to pay an upgrade fee. So easy to move up, easy to also ingest and bring in your, if you were on Aperture or iPhoto and you want to move up to a more professional tools, those importers are now built in. And of course, it's not only just about what's on your desktop. Having Lightroom Mobile as part of the plan with, again, unlimited syncing of photos and having those photos appear not only on your computer, but on your mobile devices as well, is also a huge benefit, and we'll take a look at that workflow as well. What's new with Lightroom and Creative Cloud Photography Program? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because I'm going to show most of this, but bringing things in that used to be a trip, what I used to call a trip to Photoshop, now not having to make that trip and doing it directly in the Lightroom. So for example, the trip to Photoshop just to merge an HDR no longer exists. You can do it, I mean you can do it, but you can do it right here in Lightroom. The trip to Photoshop just to merge or stitch several photos together as a panorama can now be done directly in Lightroom. Facial recognition, one of the things that people request are more ways of identifying photos. So I'm going to show you how the facial recognition works as well. And no matter what we do to Lightroom or Photoshop or any other product, everyone always wants it to be faster. So this is the first version of Lightroom to take advantage of your graphics processor unit, your GPU, in the develop module. So your develop module functions should be faster. And of course, iOS, Android, and more for the mobile part. And here's just some benchmarks across the board for even older computers, how much faster Lightroom is by taking advantage of the GPU. So in some cases, thousands % faster than on the same hardware with the previous version. So even the 4-year-old MacBook Pro, it doesn't mean that you have to have the latest and greatest to take advantage of the speed increase. And with that, see, I told you to be short and sweet. Let's get into it. All right, let's head over to Lightroom first. And I plug my phone in. It's bringing up pictures from my phone I don't want. Okay, so first and foremost, what I want to do is show off just a couple of new things as far as bringing your photos in. Now, since I have longer time than usual, normally I have to do this presentation in less than an hour, but since I've got less than 2 hours with you, I can show a little bit more and get into a little bit more detail. The import itself, that process has not changed from the standpoint of Lightroom is still a database that recognizes the locations of your photos as you tell it to look at those photos. So for example, if I have a folder on my hard drive called New York, May 2015, and I drag that folder into Lightroom, Lightroom says, oh, I know where that folder is now on your hard drive. I'm not touching those photos, but now I know they're there, and I will show them to you in Lightroom. So your photos still remain in all the locations wherever you want to keep them. External hard drives, internal hard drive, file servers, NAS, Wherever you keep your photos, they're still in those same folders, in those same locations. What's new is when I go ahead and do an import, which I will do. Actually, you're going to see me do 2 imports. And since I don't know the status of that folder, I'm going to recreate it. Bear with me for a second. All right, now that I've got that folder, I'm going to go ahead and drag this folder, like I said, into Lightroom. And Lightroom will bring up the import dialog box like it always did. And you'll notice that instead of defaulting to copy or move, it says add, because it says, you've already got these images on your hard drive. Why would I copy them? They're already where you put them. They're already where you wanted them to be. If you wanted them in a different place, then put them in a different place first before you bring them into Lightroom. So you put them where you want, then you bring them into Lightroom. Now it's saying, okay, which of those folder or those photos in that folder do you want to add? And notice that this particular folder is actually just a combination of different images from different cameras. Here's a CR2 file, which means it's a Canon RAW file. There's a JPEG. There's an NEF file, which means it came from a Nikon. Just all kinds of different images in this folder, and Lightroom doesn't care. As long as it's an image type that it can bring in, a RAW format it recognizes, it will let me bring those in. Now again, this is everything from this section all the way over to the left is pretty much the same. What's new on the right-hand side is one of my favorite new features in Lightroom, and that is the ability to automatically add these to a collection when I bring them in. Before, it would just bring in the folder, show it on the left-hand side, and if you wanted those images in a collection so you could rearrange them, mix with different images from different shoots, you'd have to make that collection manually. Now it can do it upon import. So I'm going to go ahead and say add to collection, and it's asking me which collection. What if it's a collection that doesn't exist yet? So I can go ahead and say that I want to put them in my Adobe Play folder or collection. And we'll make Play all caps. All right, so now that it's doing that, the other thing that it lets me do is sync with Lightroom Mobile. So that is, again, for someone who is on the Creative Cloud Photography program, you get the ability to sync this collection with Lightroom Mobile so that these images will sync their smart previews up to Lightroom Cloud or Lightroom Mobile, and then make them available on your mobile devices and the web, which I'll show you that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes, sync it with Lightroom Mobile. Once I click create the collection, it doesn't do anything yet because it just takes me back to the import dialog box. But there's the new collection that it just created, and now I'm going to go ahead and tell it to import. Now, one other thing that's changed in this process is when I'm importing from a card, and I'm shooting RAW 99.9% of the time, I always copy as DNG. That's not new, that's been there forever. What's new about it is in Lightroom 5 on down, when it did that conversion, it would do the conversion while it's importing. So your import would take longer. And your RAW files would still be untouched on the card. So the new ones that come into Lightroom in the folder you tell it to put them in would be DNGs. The original RAW files are on the card. Now, when it does it, it just copies the original RAW files first. So it puts them in the folder where you tell it to put them in a collection if you want. Now they're on your drive, and then you'll see the progress bar while it's doing the conversion. Now, it threw me at first because I was thinking, why is it doing this? It felt like a two-step process. Like, why is it doing this twice now? It's bringing them in first, and then it's doing the conversion. And then it dawned on me why. Because doing it that way is actually faster for me to be able to see my work. And it does the conversion to DNG in the background. So I can immediately start reviewing my photos while they're being converted, as opposed to the time it would take to do the conversion for each image as it brings it in, and those may be images I don't even want. I may complete the review process marking rejects before it even finishes converting them to DNG. So workflow-wise, that's faster, the way they changed it. And again, it took me a minute to recognize that because I thought it was a step backwards, but actually it's a step forward. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the import. And you'll see that it happens very fast because, why did it happen so fast? Why did those images come in faster than I've ever seen them come in before? Not the graphics processor, because that's only in the develop module, but good try. Next? No? They're already on the drive. Exactly. It didn't have to copy anything. They were already on the hard drive. It just said, oh, you want these? Here, they're already here. They're already on the drive. I don't have to do any I/O. I don't have to do any copying. Referenced right in Lightroom. Now the background processes begin of building the smart previews. And again, I don't have to wait for that. I can keep working. Now the only other thing you'll notice is that, and if I do it quickly before it finishes, when I go down here, you'll see Adobe Play is empty because it doesn't put them in that collection until it finishes building the smart previews. So now the 45 images are there. So if you're doing this and you're saying, wait, I told it to put them in the collection, how come the collection's empty? Check the progress bar because it may not be done doing a process before it sticks them in the collection as the last step. So now it's finished the process, they're in the collection, and I should say the last step is once they're in that collection, then it starts syncing that collection with Lightroom Mobile. So those 45 images, it's syncing instead of the RAWs, the JPEGs, the CR2s, the DNGs, the whatever, it's syncing the smart previews. So those should happen much faster. And again, that's a background process too. I don't have to wait for that. All right, while we're not waiting for that, let's go take a look at something else. Actually, I want to do another import. Normally, I would show you one of the different cities that I've already done, and I still may, but since I did a shoot last night, let's go ahead and take a look at what I shot. Let's go here in a different place where I've got my New York Sunset Cruise folder, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag that in as well into Lightroom. So again, it'll bring up the import dialog box. It'll let me do my add, and again, I can put them in a collection, and I can tell it which collection to put them in. I'll put them in the New York collection, which I've already got, and I'll go ahead and say import. And again, it's building the smart previews, and the New York collection's already there, wherever it is, but it will not put them in that collection until it's done. Let me find that New York collection. Where did I put New York? It's probably under travel. There's New York. Okay, so it's only one image in there right now, and as soon as it's done, it'll put the other ones in there. Maybe, maybe not. Or maybe I have more than one New York folder. That could be. Yes, I must have more than one, because I see it's also syncing. So here are my... I have one more?
Scroll down.
Okay, hold on, let me just do it this way. Go to collection, New York, there it is. That'll take me to it. Yeah, I had another one, so I have more than one New York collection. Okay, so I put them in that second one that I had out there, and here they are. Now you'll notice something about these particular photos, and people that shoot on a regular basis or shoot with DSLRs probably can recognize what's going on here. Why do we see a kind of okay exposure, a dark exposure, and a light exposure? Bracketed. Right, they were shot bracketed. Now I'll tell you a little story about this. I had every intention before getting here yesterday, I'm gonna go shoot the Statue of Liberty. I've been coming to New York for years, for as long as I can remember, more trips to New York than I can possibly remember. And I have never seen the Statue of Liberty. I've only seen it once from a plane. I've never actually been to it. So I said, I got some time, first day, I'm going. So I thought, I researched locations to shoot it from, and so far, for what I can tell, the only way to shoot it up close and in the front is from the water. So I booked the New York taxi cruise thing, and long story short, I got there literally last minute because my driver was not so smart. And so I ended up walking a mile to get to it. But anyway, I got to it and got on right literally last minute, and no seats left. And I'm on top deck standing there. So I have my backpack on top deck, take out my camera and get ready. Now, when you're shooting HDR or brackets, it's usually you're shooting 3 exposures or more. And you want all 3 of those exposures to be exactly in the same spot. Try that on a boat. Let alone a boat that's, I mean, is moving, but let alone one that's even just standing still in the water, because there's no standing still in the water. It's going to be bobbing up and down. It's going to be moving. So I'm click, 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 click. I'm shooting as fast as I can, as many as I can, hoping that one of them at least turns out, because I know 90% of them are bad. And this is no different. Here's what I found out. If I go to look at these, that looks great, no problem. That one looks great, no problem. Now, when you're shooting bracketed, for those of you who've never done this before, it shoots one, what we call a normal exposure, one that's usually 2 stops darker, and one, which is the next one, which is usually 2 stops lighter. That lighter one is even harder because the shutter has to stay open a little extra longer to make it lighter. So when you look at that, sharpen and focus, not so much. And every one is like that, except for maybe like 2. So hundreds of shots where the light exposure, shutter was open too long, and the boat moved just a hair, or I moved just a hair out of focus. So I started doing some merge with HDR from Lightroom with these photos, and I was disappointed. I wasn't happy with the results. And then it dawned on me. The merge from HDR doesn't have to happen with all 3 photos. So think about that for a second. Let me go show you another demo first of HDR, and then we'll come back to these. So let me show you just to get your feet wet on what it's supposed to look like. Let's go up to my demo here. I'm going to do my one from Egypt, which I've only done once live. So sorry about that. Let's do that, get rid of that. So here they are. These were shot at the worst possible time of day to be outside shooting, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. In the desert, in the bright, horrible, harsh sun. But it was the only time I could be there in this spot due to travel. So here's what happened. That's the normal exposure. That's the one that's supposed to look kind of okay. That's the dark one, and that's the one that's overexposed. And again, these were handheld. So they are not horrible, but the bad lighting. So this is why we do HDR. We do HDR because we want the pyramid and the Sphinx to be exposed, and we want the sky to be exposed. So you know, the camera doesn't work like your eye as much as we would like it to. It doesn't make that distinction. It's exposing for one or the other. So we shoot 3 exposures, let the camera do the work of picking the two stops different, and then we combine it together in a program. Now that program is Lightroom. So I can take all 3 of these, and you can get to this command a couple of different ways. I can go in and I can right click and I can say photo merge, which is the new command, or I can do a Control H from the keyboard. So I'll do photo merge to HDR, and we'll go to none first. And it will build me a preview of what these are supposed to look like. So it first shows you a preview. You'll also notice that auto align is turned on. That's for the person like me who wasn't shooting on the tripod. So it will, where they shift a little, because your handheld, they're going to shift a little, it will automatically align them. Great. But what's this, if that's auto align to put them together to make sure the pyramid is lined up in all 3 photos, then what's deghost? And it took me a minute to realize what the difference is. Auto align is for your movement. You move the camera a little bit. Deghost is for something moving in the photo. So even if you're on a tripod, there could be something moving in the photo that deghost takes care of. And I didn't realize it until I did it on this set of photos, which I took years ago, how much we need it. Obviously, pyramid's not moving. Sphinx is not moving. But what's moving in this photo? Horses or camels or whatever they are. That's not a second horse. That's the same horse. There's 2 horses here, even though it looks like 5. Because in the time it took to go click, 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 the horse moved a little. So there's one where it's a little bit forward and a little bit more forward in each one. So if I say deghost and show me the overlay, it will rebuild a new preview. And it will show me anything in red that was moving. And now I have 2 horses instead of 5. So that's why we need deghost. So we'll let it go ahead and merge. And it will build the HDR and put it right next to your original files. Now what's cool about the HDR in Lightroom is that it's building another RAW file. It's not building a JPEG or a PSD or something that's flat or pixel, doesn't have all the fidelity. It's building an additional RAW file. So it's as if you had taken that with one shot from your DSLR. That's the quality you would get. And here we are. So here's the DSLR, here's the HDR that it put right next to it, and it names it HDR with the name of one of the files. And now if I go look at that, I'll see a couple of things. First of all, if I go full screen, I'll notice there's some white border around it. Why is that? Auto align, exactly. Because of auto align, they weren't all shot at the exact same position, so when it aligned them, it left some white space. Okay, no problem, I can take care of that with crop. So let's do that. Let's hit the letter R, get the crop, and we can turn off the lock there, which I already have it off, and I can go ahead and crop those and hit the letter R and again. So now I can, and your screens are good. Normally when I project this, people can't really see this, they still can't see the sky. So you can still see the sky, great. So now I have sky, I have a pyramid, I have a sphinx, and they're all properly exposed. But you don't have to stop here. You've got a RAW file. You're in Lightroom. You've got non-destructive enhancements you can keep doing to this to make it even better. So the first thing I would want to do is scroll down, and because it is a landscape, and because especially it's monuments and statues and things, I can increase the clarity and make it even more sharp. I would also increase or add sharpening to it in the first place. Let's go in, not any of those. Let's go into the ones that are built in. Sharpen for scenic, that's built in the Lightroom. Also, because it's not a person, I can even make it more vibrant and more saturated. Not too much more saturated. I want it to be orange, but I want it to be more saturated. Okay, and again, your screen still looks pretty good. Great. Great monitors, by the way, B&H. Love these. Okay. Next, now, as much as it brought in the sky, remember what I said earlier about this particular day and time. So yeah, I can see a sky. That doesn't mean it's a great sky. It's still bad 2 o'clock sky. So now I want to enhance that. So I want to go into my graduated filter, and I'm going to expose a problem that we've always had with graduated filter that now we can fix. The problem is I want a graduated filter that starts at the top of the sky and comes all the way down to right there. And now I can play with it. I can adjust the temperature and make the sky bluer. Ooh, look at that. Okay. I could adjust the exposure, make it more dramatic. I can do all of these things, just non-destructive, quick sliders, great. But here's the problem where you've always had with the graduated filter. What's it also doing it to? The pyramid and the sphinx, right, because I drug it down that far. So the problem would be, oh yeah, sky looks great, but now the pyramid, if we look, is blue. It's doing it to the pyramid too. Now this problem got fixed in Camera Raw 1 or 2 versions ago, but it hadn't made its way into Lightroom until now. Now the fix is, there's a new command for both graduated filter and radial filter called brush. So when I click brush, I can go in and I can say erase, auto mask. Let's zoom in a little bit. And I get a brush. And I can go in and I can say, take that off this stuff here. Don't put the blue on the pyramid. And you can make your brush bigger. I'm just keeping it small because I'm working at the top here.
What's the rectangle called?
Graduated filter. See, that's an okay question. Clarification on something I just said. Not taking me off on a tangent that's going to make me stop and embarrass you. So, I'm kidding. I will try not to embarrass you, although I probably will. Let's keep going. And again, even though we don't see it so much down here, know that it is down here. So you probably need to brush all of this area, even though you don't see it as much, just to make sure you got it.
Can't you use some sort of thing that will show the...
Yeah, there's some sort of thing that will show the mask as well. There's a key that I don't know by heart that will do it. All right.
Selected mask overlay.
Wait. Oh, on the left. Yeah. That is the one. Maybe. Yep. I love it. Thank you. Okay, so you can keep going on this photo, doing more things to it, but you get the idea. Start it with 3 exposures and turn something that should have been horrible and forbidden by law into something acceptable now that I could actually print out and actually use. Spend a little bit more time on it, but there you go. Now, oh wait, I wasn't done. One more thing. Even though that's the proper exposure for the Sphinx's face, it's too dark for me. I want it lightened just a little bit. So same concept. I have a radial filter, which I can set to exposure, and I can go ahead and exposure is just a preset. And notice it's doing it to everything but the face because I haven't told it to invert the mask. And so now I get this radial that I can move around, oops, sorry about that, that I can move around and get it right where I want it.
Can't you use a brush just to do the same thing also?
Yes, you can.
Okay, just making sure.
Yep. Okay, so I can again now adjust that to whatever I want it to be just in that spot. And if it bleeds out into the pyramid, which it is, because the circle can only, it's not a custom shape, so it is going to bleed out, brush, erase, and same thing. Just go around the edges and tell it not to do the edges. And once you start doing it, you can really see where it was doing the edges. Before, you wouldn't have noticed it right away. And there you are. What do you think? There's full screen. It's too bright, but you get the idea. And if you want it, you can go in and brush in sides that are a little bit more exposed or less exposed or sharper or whatever. Okay, so now that we've seen the HDR process and what it does, let's go back to New York. Let's go back to the horrible, unsharp, out of focus light version. And you know what? I fought with this image this morning. I spent like an hour on this trying to figure out the best way to do it, and then it dawned on me. I can't fix the focus of that image. I just can't. So why use it? Nope. The exposure itself is bad, so deghost won't even fix it. Don't use it. Select those 2 and not the 3rd one. Control H. I'm not even going to do the deghost first. I was pretty happy when I saw that as my first stop. Like, okay, I'm not even done yet. That looks pretty darn good. And if I wanted to deghost it, because although it looks pretty good, I don't see 2 flags, but I could try deghost to see if it's going to make that big of a difference. What it will probably highlight is the clouds, because the clouds were moving. Oh, I saw a part of the bridge moving too, so, or cut out, so good. Yeah, I can see where it needs to fix all of that. Now, if I turn that back off, oh, take your pick which part of the bridge you want. How about medium? What does medium do? Yeah, see, this might be a job for Photoshop just to fix that one part of the railing. Oh, that's better. So medium did a better job than low. Okay, then what about high? Full power. But that's okay. If I turn off the overlay, that's what it's done. I like it. Great, do it. Merge. And of course, 2 exposures takes less time than 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. I've seen as many people do as many as those. And these are 36 megapixel files, so it does take a minute. Okay, so here's our final, which we can now take into the develop module. And I can make my slight adjustment to the highlights. Again, clarity, vibrance. Ooh, too much saturation. Too much. The sky's down on fire. Sky's down on fire. Sky's down on fire. Maybe that. Too much. All right. I also like to put a little linear contrast in that. Darken it up just a little bit in certain areas. And last but not least, there's one more thing bothering me about this particular photo. and that is the buildings. They're leaning. And thank God we have upright. So I can do a vertical upright and fix it. So this was before, this is after. You can of course try them all, see which one you like better. That's auto, kind of frames it a little bit better. Level, vertical, full. I'm not sure what full's giving me a view of, but full's kind of interesting. I like vertical. And again, I could do the whole thing with a graduated filter. And graduated filters don't have to go up and down. Maybe you want to do the graduated filter that way. And kind of do something cool there. What do you think? From a boat. It can be done. I don't recommend it. I certainly don't want to do it again. But if you have to, don't think about the one that's out of focus. If you have two good ones, start with those. Okay, along those same lines, which one do I want to do? Let's do oh yeah, I did bring it. Okay, there it is. Let's get rid of one of those. So, panoramas. Multiple shots taken like vertical, click, 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 click until I got the whole scene with about a 40% overlap. And now we'll just select all those, control click, and photo merge to panorama. Now, unless you're just unsure of what you're doing, I recommend you probably turn off the auto select projection, because I haven't seen it guess one yet that I like better than the one I would have picked. What this is supposed to look for is how you shot it. So, because some people are shooting, like I did, landscapes panorama. Some are shooting complete 360-degree panoramas, or anything in between. So it's trying to decide, based on what it sees, what kind of image you shot. And like I said, in most cases, it just guesses the wrong guess for me, so I just go ahead and do it manually. And that means you have your choice of perspective, which is usually what I'm shooting, versus cylindrical or spherical. So if I do spherical, building the preview for it. If I do cylindrical, and in this case, I might like spherical better. Cylindrical, not much of a difference. And perspective, we already saw. So let's go back to cylindrical. And the only other thing that's different here from the way you would have done it in Photoshop is that this also has an auto crop. Because I was handheld, and just like the camera moved a little on the HDR, it's going to move a lot when you're doing this. It's going to move a lot up and down. So auto crop says, I'm going to get rid of all that extra white space for you. If I turn it off, that's what I would have ended up with. Now, there's something said to leaving it like this, because if you leave it like this, then you have the opportunity to take it into Photoshop and do a content-aware fill on the white space, and let Photoshop build in the rest of the sky and build in the rest of the scenery at the bottom. So if you want the full size of your panel, then you might want to turn off auto crop. That's up to you. I'm not going to merge that because I already have one here, but there it is. All right, let's move on to identifying, now that you shot, now that you brought in images, you've merged HDR, you've merged panels. Let's talk about keywords and face tagging. So let's go back up here to those images I brought in earlier. And all Lightroom has done at this point, is bring in those images, put them in a collection, and sync that collection to Lightroom Mobile. So, and I didn't enter any keywords as I was doing it. Now, keywords are one of those things that most people don't do. And it's not because they're hard or they just, can't do it. It's just, it takes time. But it's one of those things that when you do it and you end up using it 6 months from now, You are so glad you did it. You're like, oh my God, those keywords really came in handy because I was able to find the photo I'm looking for. I'll be the first to admit, I started using keywords years ago and I was like a keyword fanatic. I'd spend hours doing it and then I kind of just, next thing you know, it was an hour doing it. Next thing you know, it was 30 minutes. Next thing you know, I stopped. Not because I don't think they're valuable, it's just I got lazy when it came to keywords. I just stopped doing them. Until recently, I was looking for a photo that you know what's painful is looking for a photo you know you have, and you can't find it. You know you have it, but you don't know where it is. And I always thought I would always be able to find my photos because I'm very good at collections, and I'm always naming my collections properly and putting photos in them. But I was looking for a photo of a specific thing that wouldn't fit in a specific collection name. I knew I had that photo, but it was like, well, I have no idea what collection that would be. I have no idea what year I took it. I have no idea but I knew I had it. I eventually found it after a long time of looking, but I did find it. It was in some folder I would have never thought to look in, but it was there. So when it comes to spending a few seconds keywording, you do it once and it pays off forever. As long as you keep that photo, you'll always have those keywords to be able to search on. So in the past, in this first photo that's selected, if this were this particular shoot is not mine, but if this was my shoot, the way I would keyword this photo is I would go in and I would do things like Asian, blue background, paper, brunette, red lipstick, gray sweater. I'm looking for anything in that photo that I might search on someday. I might be looking for a gray sweater. I might be looking for a blue background. I might be looking for something in this photo. Now, the thing I used to do here when I did keywords was, if I knew her name, I'd put her name in right now. Because she might get put in a collection or a folder that's not her name. So I would always want to be able to search for, her name's Mary, by the way. I would always want to be able to search for Mary. Now, that part of it isn't as cumbersome as it used to be. Because think about naming people. First, you'd have to go through every photo looking to see if there are people in it. Because every photo doesn't have people. The Brooklyn Bridge didn't have any people in it. But I have to click on it, oh, no people there, no people there. Oh, that one's got people, name the people. So why not let Lightroom now do that for you? So for example, I can go here and I can say, under my view menu, we had grid, loop, compare, and survey before. Now we have a brand new one called people. And when I look at people, it will immediately start going through my photos in that collection or folder or whatever and looking for faces. So it's automatically only showing me the photos that have faces in them. And if the faces look close enough alike, it stacks them together because it thinks it's the same person. So the very first stack is 5 pictures of the same person because it says, that looks like Mary to me. I'm going to go ahead and stack those together. Now, it doesn't know Mary. It doesn't know her name. It's not that smart yet. So I have to tell it who that. Now, the day it starts doing that, it starts just knowing all the people in your photos. NSA. Anyway, let's go. Let's go here and let's do it and type in the word Mary. All right. So now, once I hit Mary and I hit enter, it moves Mary up to the named people because now it knows, okay, all 5 of those, which by the way I could have clicked on to check, like all 4 of these to make sure they are the same person, and they are. It knows who that person is now. Now, it is software, and every face that it knows is the same, it will stack together, but there are some faces that are the same person that it just won't guess, it just won't know. So for example, those aren't the only pictures of Mary. Mary is also down here. These are pictures of Mary too. It just didn't know. Now, the more times you tell it who they are, the smarter it gets. So it will keep building its algorithms and keep getting smarter. So the next time, okay, you've identified all these different looks as Mary, okay, next time anything in that range comes in, I know it's Mary. So for example, I can go ahead and identify this one and say, yep, that's Mary too. And it will just move it up and stack it on with the rest. So now there's 6 photos instead of 5. You can also drag and drop. So for example, if I can, I don't know if I can do this, if it will scroll, it won't. If I could get up there and see that, I could go, oh here, let's do this one. This is Jesse. And if there's another photo of Jesse, there's one. So this is a photo of Jesse right here. I can drag it up and drag it onto Jesse. So you can select a bunch at the same time. You don't have to do them one by one. Shift select, command select, get them all and drag them all up onto the same person. Then it knows who all of those people are. So you keep going through that process until you run into, and you, oh, by the way, notice it got smarter. I didn't do that. It's saying, hey, Mary? Kind of looks like her. You told me these 6 people were her. Is that her? And that's why it says question mark. Mary? Yes, Mary. And now I just made it smarter. So what it also may not get is it may not get complete profile shots or anything obscured. So if someone's got their hand in front of their face or something in front of their face, a hat dipped down or whatever, that's somewhat blocking the face, then it may not recognize it as a face at all. So you have 2 options. Faces that aren't real faces or that you care about, or images that it did not get the face on. So let's talk about the first one. I noticed some faces here that, even if I knew all these people, these photos aren't anyone I know. Like, I don't even recognize those as pictures I took. What's going on here? So let's double click on one of those. And I see the problem. A picture of a book was taken that happened to have some faces on it, and started identifying all the faces on the book. Now, those people on that book are not people I know, people I will ever shoot again, people I will ever need to look for. So I don't need those face tags at all. So the next easiest thing to do is to go through and delete them. You can click on them and delete the ones that you don't need. Now let's say you did need this one, which is it did not even identify. Why didn't it identify it? Shadows. Oh, sorry, I hate when I do that. Shadows. It's partially obscured. It did not identify that as a face. If that were in a regular photo that you did want, then you have a face region tool or people region tool that you can go in and draw the face on it that you want and then identify that person. So you can manually do it on faces that it did not pick up, and you can delete it on faces that it picked up or things it picked up that are faces that aren't really faces. I've seen it identify faces on like a backdrop, because the little squiggly lines look like eyes, and then there's a little squiggly line that looks like a nose, and another squiggly line, yeah, I can see that looks like a face to you, but it's not. So delete the face region, and away you go. The letter O will take me back, and now, again, one of the things I normally don't get time for, but let's quickly look down here in the keyword list, and you'll notice that now there's different categories. Before it was just your list of keywords. Now it's all keywords, people keywords, which are the ones from the face recognition, or other, which means they're not people. So now you can have your choice of, I'm just looking for people. And for example, when I go down and I say, Mary, show me all the photos of Mary. Done. So now it's that much faster to find people anywhere in your catalog, in any collection, in any folder, because once they've been identified, you can have Lightroom just show them all to you. No matter what, when you took them, how old they are, whatever, as long as you've identified them.
Do it and do it.
Yes, you do have to do it. You have to, of course, recognize the faces and tell it once, and then from that point on, just like any other keyword, it's from that point on searchable. All right, that is the face recognition. Let's go back and take a look at, let's go back to that collection. Let's spend a few moments on Lightroom Mobile. I had some questions on that right before I got started. I'm going to give you kind of a quick look at a couple of ways of using it. First, I'll stay on this collection for a moment. First and foremost, Lightroom Mobile started out as something that was only iPad. The first version was like only an iPad app. Then we added iPhone. Then we added Android phone. And with this latest update, we added Android tablet. So iOS and Android phones and tablets are now supported. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. And there's a couple of ways of using Lightroom Mobile in the workflow. So when you launch Lightroom, it will probably prompt you to do it now. But let's say you missed all the prompts, you dismissed it all, and you now want to start. Well, up here is a hidden Lightroom area, Lightroom Mobile menu. You made it. Okay. Anyway. Yes, I did actually. Don't tell her I didn't save it. It was already. Okay. So there's a hidden area right up here that basically if you pull this menu down, this is where you get to Lightroom Mobile, now address lookup, and face detection. So this is where you tell it to sync with Lightroom Mobile or not. Once you click the box, it's going to take you to, again, the same thing. Oh, now it doesn't anymore. I take that back. It does, yeah, it doesn't have to anymore because now it's using Creative Cloud. So the old version, Lightroom 5, used to take you to an area where you signed in. Lightroom CC doesn't have to anymore. All right, so once you're signed in, and we bring up the iPad again, I go to my apps, and I launch Lightroom on my iPad, and here it is. And notice that Adobe Play just popped in, because the last time I launched this on my iPad, the Adobe Play collection wasn't synced. So now I can go into that Adobe Play collection, I can see all of those photos, and more importantly, I can do things remotely on my iPad, as long as I, in this case, as long as I have an internet connection, even away from my computer. So for example, a lot of people are using this because they do a shoot, they bring it into Lightroom on the desktop, and then they want to go like sit on the sofa, sit somewhere comfortable, and review. That's what it was originally designed for on the iPad. So I tap on a photo, and we've streamlined it, thank God, for the way you do reviews versus editing. So now at the very bottom, notice it defaulted to all my kind of editing or adjustment tools. Swipe left, swipe right, and there's all my adjustments. So I can see that this had already been flagged as a 1-star image. You know what a 1-star image is to me? A delete, a reject. What's a 2-star? Almost bad enough to delete? I never understood the 1 and 2 star. It's either good or it's not. And if it's not, there's already a mechanism called a reject flag. If it's good, then it's 3, 4, or 5 stars. So I never understood 1 star. But anyway, some of these images were rated with 1 star. So that means to me that I would either say that this is good and keep it, and it's a 3-star, or I could reject it. Now, reject is over here on the left, the first flag. Now, and that's what I was going to show you. The iPad gives me a nice big enough screen so I can see them both at the same time and tap on them. They change the interface a lot. But if you want to do it from gestures, anywhere on the screen, as long as you're in this mode, you can swipe up or down to reject on the left-hand side. So if I want to reject that, or up and down on the right-hand side to star rate. So we wouldn't have a 5-star rating if we were going to reject it. So let's make it unflagged. So now you can just swipe to the next photo, and I can say, oh, nope, that's a reject. I don't like her eyes. Over to the side. Same thing, reject. That one's cool. Not a 5-star, but we'll keep it. Don't like it. That's cool. Maybe that's a pick. That's cool, it's okay. That one's okay. We're coming to that. All right.
Is this doing the same thing in Lightroom on the...
We're coming to that. We're coming to that, if anyone else wants to ask. All right. Out of focus to me, reject. Just not a great photo, reject. That one's okay, I guess, as a behind the scenes. These aren't my photos, so it's hard for me to judge someone else's work. Well, actually, it's easy for me to judge someone else's work. Reject. Reject. That one's okay. That one's okay. That one's okay. Actually, I kind of like that one. 5 stars. That one's okay. Reject, don't need it. And that's, oh, I thought that was it. Reject, you get the idea. That one's okay. That one's cool. That one's okay. That one's okay. Oh, I like that one.
These are my photos.
5 stars. They're not. I know who took them. They're not yours. Nice try. I wouldn't have felt bad anyway. You shouldn't have left. You shouldn't have let me do this then. All right, the rest of these are just okay, and we're at the end. Okay, so now, what's cool is when I get back to this view, I can use 2 fingers and tap to see ISO and camera settings, tap again to see resolution, date and time, and name of the file, tap one more time, and see the rejects, pick flags, and adjustments. So I can see right off the bat which ones have star ratings, which ones, wait a minute, oh yeah, there we are. Which ones have rejects and which ones don't. Now, what if I'm just looking for the good ones or the bad ones? Well, you notice at the top there's an Adobe Play thing. If that's a menu, I can say, just show me the 5 stars. Just show me the really good ones. Great. I can email those out to someone. Or better yet, there we go. Just show me the rejected ones. These are ones that are really bad. Don't use these. So you can do that right here on Lightroom Mobile. Let me show all, for example, and let me turn off the rejected and picks. What if I now want to hand this iPad to you for you to look at and go through them? The problem is, if you go through them and you don't even know Lightroom, you're just a person I'm handing these to look at, then you might do something to my photo. You might swipe by mistake, up, down, left, right, marker to pick, marker to reject, star rate it by mistake. So one of the things we can do now in Lightroom Mobile is on each collection, there's a little menu at the bottom right. I can tap on that menu and I can say, present. When I put it in presentation mode, now I hand you my iPad and you tap on a photo and all you can do is look at the photo. You can swipe left or right. You can't swipe up or down. You can't do any adjustments. You can't do anything else. It's just for you to look at. So if I'm handing it for someone that's not reviewing the photos, but just looking at them, great. When I get out of this, it will say, do you want to exit presentation mode? Yes. Now, speaking of adjustments, let's say this was a photo we're keeping. Let's say I want to make an adjustment to it. So let's swipe to the other side. I can first of all say that I know I want to post this on Instagram. Instagram is a square format. So I want to crop it. I want to use the aspect ratio of square. I can recompose it in that square. Maybe something like that. And then I can get out of the crop tool. I can also go in and make any other adjustments I want. So I have the same adjustments that are in the Lightroom Develop module. If I want to adjust the temperature, make it cooler, warmer, I can. Although the temperature looked pretty good the way it was. I can turn on auto tone, I can adjust the exposure. And these are all, how do I get what menu?
The adjustment.
Swiping down here is ratings, swiping over here are adjustments. Then I tap adjust. Okay, I can go, for example, let's make it a little bit more vibrant. That's good. Okay, so the beauty of this is when I make these adjustments that are non-destructive, it's making these adjustments non-destructively to the Smart Preview, and those adjustments, just the adjustments, are sent back up to Lightroom Mobile and synced back down to the desktop. So if we go back and look at the desktop, and we go back and look at all of these, there are my pick flags, rejects, star ratings, everything I've done, including my crop to square, and every adjustment I made while I was out on the go. So now if I want to get rid of these bad ones, I can say Command Delete on the Mac and remove those 12 images from this collection and get rid of them, or remove them from the folder itself, which is what I would really do. And now they're gone. Now I'm left with just the good ones. If I now get back and say, okay, I shared that on Instagram while I was out, and now I don't want this on Instagram anymore, or meaning don't want it on Instagram, don't want it to be square anymore, I can go back to the Develop module, and I can reset it. Here, let's go back to Fit first, and reset it back to the way it should look, because the adjustments are non-destructible. So everything I did in Lightroom Mobile, I can either change in Lightroom Mobile any way I want, or Lightroom on the desktop, reset it, and get back to the way I was. All right. That was Lightroom on iPad. I'm going to do one more thing real quick here. I'm going to go back to the people view, and I'm going to bring up my phone now. And on my phone, there's one thing I forgot to set. Let me do it now. Actually, I can show you, because that way you'll learn. So here, let me show you first. All right, what I was gonna set, because I switched this is my demo collection, this is not really my Terry White home photography collection. So when you switch catalogs, Lightroom Mobile can only sync to one catalog at a time. So when I switch to this catalog, it says, hey, do you want to sync to this one? And I lose everything that was in the previous one on my phone until I switch back. So what I always forget to do before a demo is when I go into that collection on my phone, I have a collection called On the Go. What I want that collection to represent is any images I took with my phone. Like I shot something with my phone, I want it back on my desktop when I get home. So On the Go is one collection that I want to set to enable auto add. That's the second choice there. When I enable auto add, any new images I take with my phone, the minute I launch Lightroom Mobile on my phone, will automatically import into that collection. So let's prove it. Let's go into the camera on the phone, and let's switch it to me. No, just kidding. All right, took the picture. Now, of course, that was the picture with the phone, so it's on the camera roll just like it would any other picture be. But now if I go right back to Lightroom Mobile, I don't have to look at it in photos. If I go right back to Lightroom Mobile, I had 54 photos in On the Go. Now I have 55 because one photo just got imported. So it brought that photo automatically into Lightroom. If I go to my On the Go, since I got this in reverse order, let's switch it. It's the most recent photo that was taken. There it is. And it's syncing the full resolution of that photo back up to the desktop. I'm going to take it one step further. I'm going to take that photo and I'm going to move it to a different collection, even here on the phone. I'm going to say move it to the Adobe Play collection. Done. So now it's no longer in On the Go. It's been moved to Adobe Play. And if we scroll down to the bottom, there it is. Okay, great. I'm in there with the rest. But what's really happening here? What's the point? The point is now when I go back to my desktop, there I am. In the same collection, recognized as a face because I'm in the face tagging view.
Is it the preset or everything on the desktop, on the laptop, as it gets?
I'm on that collection called Adobe Play.
Yeah.
So I moved it to that collection on the phone, which synced it back to the desktop and put it in the same collection.
So it's a preset. It isn't the whole image, I'm saying.
No, that is the whole image. Okay, I see what he's saying. What he's asking is, Lightroom from your desktop syncs up to Lightroom Mobile Smart Previews. That's what he meant by presets. Not the full raw file, not the full resolution image. But coming from a mobile device up to Lightroom Mobile, we have to sync the full resolution. Because otherwise you would never have the full resolution photo anywhere. So that is the full 8 megapixel resolution from this phone that this phone can capture, or whatever it was from the front-facing camera. So that is the full resolution. Now if I go in and identify me, then it puts me up in the identified photos.
It put it in that collection. Where did it put it on your hard drive?
Okay, good question. He says, where did it put it on my hard drive? When you bring in images from Lightroom Mobile from your mobile devices, it will create an area automatically, like a folder on your drive, a place where it decides they need to go, and you can move them if you want. So it's got one for 2 phones here because I've had 2 different phones that are the same. But one of these is going to be, let me go, it's either this one or the other one. These are all images that came in from the phone, so it must be the other one.
Are they in JPEG format?
They're in whatever your phone shoots. So it's this one. So if I don't want them in there, if I want to put them in a different folder, I can move them right now to whatever folder I want them in. So her question was, what is it JPEG or whatever? It's whatever your phone shoots. So there's one phone that shoots RAW on the Android side. We now support that phone shooting RAW and bringing in those RAW images.
Phone shoots what?
There is I don't know, it's a phone. It's a what is it? Nokia Lumia something phone. One of those shoots RAW, and we support it. So it's whatever the phone can do. So when iPhones start shooting RAW, we'll support it on the iPhone. All right, so that was Lightroom Mobile, that workflow back and forth. You saw me go from the computer to the iPad, and of course those same images are on the phone. Review, the reviewing came back to the desktop, and you saw me shoot from the phone and get back to the desktop as well, and of course that image is also available on the iPad. So far, you've seen a lot of the new things in Lightroom. Let's talk about the workflow now. Let's go in. Oh, yeah, it was this one. Okay. So let's say I like this photo, but I would like it a little bit more if it had a few adjustments to it. So this is where the workflow comes in to, I decide, can I do these adjustments in Lightroom? If so, great, I'll do them there. Or does it need more than what Lightroom can do? So I always have people ask me, especially that have never used Lightroom or are new to Lightroom or new photographers, they always ask, do I need Photoshop? And my response is always, that depends. Because it does. It depends on what level of editing you need. If you're a landscape shooter and you're doing mostly global adjustments with a few local adjustments here and there are adjustments, then Lightroom's probably all you need. But if you're a portrait shooter or a fashion shooter and you need to get in and do a lot more adjustments that require layering, cloning, liquefying, things like that, that Lightroom can't do, that's when you need Photoshop. So it depends on what you need. I can't answer that question. I can only show you the difference. So in this case, this particular photo of Jesse has some things that are in it that I want to adjust or fix or change that Lightroom can't do. So let me show you the workflow. Once I've identified that photo as one that I want to adjust, then I normally hit a keyboard shortcut Command E or PC Control E that means edit in Photoshop. But to show you where that is from a contextual menu, right click, and there is an edit in Adobe Photoshop. So once I do the edit in Photoshop, now notice that that was a raw file. So it just opens up what looks to be like the raw file in Photoshop, but as we know, we can't or shouldn't be able to edit raw files. So while it opened up the full resolution, the full 16-bit of the raw information, when I make any changes and hit save, it's saving back to Lightroom a TIFF by default or a PSD depending on your preference. So it's never changing your original raw file or DNG or NEF or CR2 or whatever your raw file is. All right, so now what do I want to do to this image? First things first, I hate wrinkles and clothes for fashion shots, so I would fix this, and this is something I can't fix in Lightroom. So for example, some people will duplicate the layer first. Okay, I'll do that for you, even though I never do it that way, but I'll do it for you because that way you always have the layer underneath that isn't changed. But what I would then do is I would, and by the way, I can take advantage of a new feature. I can go ahead and convert that to a smart object, convert for smart filters. And once it's done that conversion for smart filters, then I can go into liquefy. So let's go to liquefy. And let's go ahead and move up a little bit and zoom in a little bit on this wrinkle area that I'm concerned about. Now, the first problem I'm right off the bat knowing I'm going to have is that on the white background, great, no problem. On the pink background, great, no problem. But where this edge is, problem. Because I don't want to accidentally pull over some of that background. So there's a feature in Photoshop, if you're in the advanced mode of liquefy, it's a checkbox. So once you're in advanced mode, there is a freeze mask tool. So the freeze mask tool lets you go in and say, don't touch any of this. So you can go in and say, this is all off limits. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter, but I made all that off limits. Okay, so now that I made all that off limits, I can go in and I can go ahead and fix these wrinkles with liquefy without pulling over part of that pink that I don't want. And same thing, where it is pulled in too far, I can pull it back out. Now, if I didn't freeze mask in there good enough, it will pull it over, but I think it should be okay. All right, it's retouching. It's all about the little things. Okay, I'm happy with that, so we'll go ahead and click OK on it. And again, I didn't do that properly, so let's use the next best thing. Let's go back into it. And I can either fix it here. Actually, it's easier to fix it the other place. Let me do it this way. Oh, that's right, because it's a smart object. All right, I want to go in and I'll tell you what, I'm just deciding how I want to undo just that one part without undoing the whole thing. I can, this is on or off. I can go in and paint it, or I can go in and, I'll tell you what, let's merge it down. Zoom in. So what I did was merge it down, and using the history brush, I can go in and fix just that one piece. Careful. Smaller brush. Tell you what, stamp it.
Cloning it now?
Cloning just that one little piece, yes. All right. And I would go in and take my time and do a better job, but you get the idea. Next, let's go in. Next, let's go in, zoom into the hair. I don't mind this big fluffy hair, but there are parts of it that are bugging me. So let's go in and let's clone out pieces of it. The little frizzy parts that stick out a little bit more than they should. So again, can I use the spot removal tool in Lightroom? Yes, but it will be a painful process in doing something like this. It's just much faster doing it in Photoshop.
What tool is that?
It's clone stamp tool. All right, and again, you take your time, do as much of this as you want. I'm kind of just blowing through it real quick for the sake of time and showing some things, again, that Lightroom wouldn't do. Now, of course, this is a natural part of his face. If it weren't, so I'm just using this as an example, but if it weren't, if it were a blemish, a pimple, something that was gonna be gone next week, this won't be, but if it was, then I would go ahead and remove it. But on his face, I would have left that. I'm just showing you how the tool works. All right. Same thing with a mole. If it's a person's mole, it's a person's mole. You don't take it off. But if it were a blemish, I would take it off. All right. Anything else as far as a defect is concerned? Whatever that is right there. And let's say I'm done. Save, close, switch back to Lightroom, and Lightroom will put the edited image as the one that it highlights now next to the original raw file. So you don't lose the raw file, you gain a new image. Now I'm in this collection. Do I need this raw file anymore in this collection? No. This is the collection of my finished work for Adobe Play. I don't need both. So I can go ahead and hit delete. I didn't delete it off the hard drive. I didn't remove it from the folder. I just removed it from this collection. It's not in the collection anymore because I have the edited version in the collection. All right. So that is your workflow from going from Photoshop or Lightroom to Photoshop and back. Now, like I said, the difference is I like them to come back as PSDs. By default, they come back as TIFFs. Where you make that change I believe it's in your catalog settings. No, it's in your regular settings, your regular preferences, under file handling, external editing, and you would change it from TIFF to PSD if you want. Both will work with layers, both should support everything you do, but to me, I just feel safer with a PSD. I don't know why. So I changed that early on. Speaking of changing early on, this is where you turn on or off the graphics processor performance. So, and you'll even see if it's on by default, but this will be showing it. It will show you even if you have a graphics card that support it, and it will be checked. If not, it will just use the standard CPU as it always did. And one more preference while we're at it, catalog settings. This one is brand new, and it's the way we handle standard previews. We used to build a specific size of your standard preview. I believe it was 1440. So when you click on an image to view it in loop view, we build a preview at that time if it wasn't already built. Well, as you know, now monitors have changed drastically over the years. We have 4K monitors, we have IMAX with 5K monitors, we have 8K on the horizon, we have all these different higher resolution monitors. So 1440 is not enough anymore. And you can go in and change it to a specific size or do what I did and leave it on auto. So auto will build the standard preview based on the display you're on. So if you're on, like I'm on my laptop, so it's going to build a 1280 resolution because that's what I'm at right now. But if I were at home on my 4K Dell display, then it would build a bigger one. So it will build a standard preview, not smart preview, standard preview for whatever size display you're on automatically, unless you change it to be a specific size. Last but not least, telling your story. So we've done the workflow, we've edited images. At this point, if you were trying to deliver these images to the client, so if I wanted to deliver this file, I would go to export and export it with whatever settings I need. So for example, I have one called for web that will knock the size down to 1024 in size, knock the quality down, make it sRGB, 8-bit, and remove the person and location info from the metadata. And that will put it in a folder on my desktop with my watermark stamp. So if I do that, it just made that photo, just that fast. So now that's the one I send the client. I don't send the client a layered PSD file. I send them the JPEG. So that's how we get the files out of Lightroom. Okay, the web module is the only other thing that got changes as far as the modules are concerned. And it didn't get a lot of big changes. What it got is stripped out all the Flash-based galleries. So these are all HTML5 based now. And we added a few new ones. So for people that are using Lightroom to post their images on their own website, these galleries now have been updated and optimized. Okay, one last thing. Telling your story via the slideshow is great. But if I want a story on the web module is not enough, meaning it just shows me pictures. It doesn't really tell any story, it just shows me a gallery, people click on the picture, go left to right. So there's another way now that's new and free and takes advantage of Creative Cloud. Let me show it to you here. And it's a free Adobe iPad app called Adobe Slate. So there it is at the top center, Adobe Slate. You can get from the App Store for your iPad. And when I tap Adobe Slate, it asks me to sign in. All right, signed in. And you notice it, first of all, gives me some inspirational ones to look at. These are other people's Slate projects that you could tap on, review, look through, see how they did it. So Rick Floor did this one, I know Rick. This is Snowy Isles and 'Tis the Season. So I can swipe through, and notice I didn't just get the photo, I'm getting his text description, I'm getting his story. I can go through, see more stories, more photos, kind of cool transitions, and this is basically allowing me to swipe through it. Now that's because I'm in Slate right now that I'm able to see this. But let me show you how you're going to do yours and let anyone be able to see it that doesn't have Slate. Let's go ahead and hit Create New Story. And the first thing it wants me to do is add a title. So I'm going to do a title called World Travel. And I can do a subtitle by Terry.
Why are you doing it on iPad as opposed to, I'm just curious.
Because it's an iPad app, and I can. All right, the next thing it wants me to do is add a photo. So notice the photo choices are what you would expect. Get a photo off the iPad, take one with the iPad camera. Don't ever let me see you doing that, I will tease you. Grab one from Creative Cloud from your folder in Creative Cloud. This has nothing to do with Lightroom, just you have 20 gigs of storage for full Creative Cloud members, so it lets you grab a photo from that folder. Lightroom. So any catalog you've synced to Lightroom Mobile and all the collections you've synced are accessible, as well as Dropbox. So if I do Lightroom, it will show me my most recently synced collections and any adjustments and any photos I have in them, and I have the ability to use them. So if I go to Adobe Play, it shows me all the Adobe Play photos, plus the one I just put in there of me, any adjustments I made. If I go to my travel portfolio, I can go ahead and grab any of these. So there's my Brooklyn Bridge that I'm adding to the story. Now I can just scroll and keep going. So the next thing it prompts me with, and it will keep prompting you with the same question every time, what do you want next? Another photo, text, a link, or a photo grid? So if I want text,
Is that just a separate frame of text explaining something as opposed to relative to a photo?
correct, it's not a caption. This is just a separate frame. Great City of New York. B&H photo, and I'm done. Okay, so next thing, what do you want next? Plus sign. Photo, text, link, or grid. So I want another photo. And what photo do I want? My last time I was in New York, I thought I saw a photo there. It's here, here it is. Last time I was in New York, taking this one from top of 30 Rock. Now, it brought it in at the regular size. Here, notice it's still selected. I can choose any display options I wanted. So I can make it fill screen, window, full width, or move it in order. So I want to make it full width. Great. Now I can scroll and go to now see he asked me about caption. See where it says add a caption? That's relative to that photo. So I can say taken at the top of 30 Rock. 30 Rockefeller Plaza, but you know what I mean. All right, next. Thankfully, my job is worldwide, and therefore I get to travel the world and shoot. Okay, next photo. I can pick another photo from any area I want. So for example, let's go grab the one from Egypt. And this one I want to make a window. I'll show you what window is in just a moment. And we'll do one more. Text, such a pleasure visiting Egypt and Asia. All right, so now I want to add more photos than just one. So I say photo grid. And here I get to pick multiple photos at the same time. So I can pick that one. What else is the leopard? And let's do Paris. And let's do London. And London. Import failed on that one for some reason. London again. And Denmark. And if I don't like the order, I can move them around. Say move that one up, and move this one up, and put that one there. So once I'm done, and now that's there. And I just keep going. Text, image, or multiple images, link. So if I say link, for example, I could say, actually I didn't mean to do text. I can do link, and I can say, visit my site.
This is on the iPad.
This is on the iPad. TerryWhitePhotography.com. Done, and now that's a visit my link button. So now if I'm done with this, of course I can keep editing, keep adding more, keep doing more. I could then say share, and I don't want to make it public. I don't want it to show up in the rest of where people could get inspired. I don't want them inspired by this. But if I want it, I can make it public. I don't. I can put it in whatever category I want. I never looked at the categories, but I'm going to put travel. Great. I can show my author credits, which I do, and then I can hit continue. It's now uploading the text and images and converting and making the HTML and doing all of this for me. And what I will get when it's done is a link. So I can, the link has been copied to the clipboard already. I can also tap it, and that will take me to my web browser on my iPad and show me my story. So this is a custom link just for my story. And so if I send this link to any of you, you'd be able to look at it on your web browser just as I am now, and you'd basically scroll through, see the text, see the images, see the effects, including the window effect, which is kind of cool. And if you tap the link, it will take you to my site. So now I have a quick, easy, fast, free way of telling my story for anyone with a web browser and sharing it. And that's Adobe Slate. Thank you guys, and for those of you who have to leave, thank you.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.